Hi, seniors. It's the last day here of this unit in which we're looking at business cycles. And you have a do now practice exercise, review of GDP, unemployment, inflation. And I've put the key for that do now up on Schoology. So our big question for today, what is the relationship between business cycle and economic health? That's on page 48 of our unit packet. We'll look at the different phases of the business cycle, compare recession and depression, then look at some other types of economic indicators and help us identify where we're at in that cycle. This is in preparation for our assessment on Wednesday, then our cumulative assessment on Friday. The terms, you read about these in the text for your homework for today. We'll use these today. So let's take a look at the business cycle. It's that recurring periods of growth and decline in economic activity. So it is a cycle. It's constantly repeating. And you can look at it from a couple of different perspectives like this. Or I prefer this one, these ups and downs. And we have these four different periods or phases of the business cycle. And while we might experience a decline, we always go back up, peak and go back down. In the long run, we always experience economic growth. So that's really important to keep in mind. It's just like exercising, working out. You'll get tired, you'll get beat up, you'll hurt a little bit, but then you'll come back stronger. And you do that over time, you're going to become really good at something. So that's how it is in our economy. This is what it looks like. You can think about it in terms of emotions as well. During a recession, people lose jobs, unemployment goes up, people don't have money. It's kind of a sad time. But during a recovery, people get their jobs back. They're buying stuff. It's a successful time. But then we hit that recession again, and we hit the expansion phase again. And so again, keep in mind here the long-term trend is economic growth. All right, copy and complete this table. What happens during each phase of the business cycle? Maybe pause the video. Try this out. This is also in your textbook in the chapter in the section that you just read. So go ahead and do that and then resume the video. All right, probably the easiest one to understand is the expansion. And during an expansion, GDP is going to go up, unemployment is going to go down, and inflation is generally going to go up because of what we talked about last week, where these move in opposite directions. People have jobs, people have money. That creates demand pull inflation, which causes it to increase here. Then it's like a roller coaster. You're going to go up, 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 and up, and then you're going to peak, and then these numbers are going to start to go down in a contraction. So GDP goes down, unemployment starts to go up, and remember these move in opposite directions. And then in a trough is the bottom point of the business cycle, your lowest low. You've hit rock bottom. That's your trough. Now, while all of this is happening, remember that something is, growth, especially in expansion, is positive, but there's something creeping up behind us. And remember our cat video that we had watched and how if we're not careful, inflation can get out of control. So that's the government's job, is to continually work to control so that we don't fall off a cliff and experience a really bad contraction. So then when the economy does go down during a recession or a contraction, a couple terms that are oftentimes thrown around. Recession is negative GDP for 2 consecutive quarters, so for half a year, we have negative GDP. If one quarter is negative, the other one is positive, that is not a recession. It has to be for at least 6 months. And then at what point does it become a depression? It's prolonged and severe. There's not a specific level of GDP or unemployment rate. It's just prolonged and severe. We'll look at some historical data to show you why we didn't call the last recession a depression. Here's some numbers to better illustrate this. Over the past 60 years, we've had a number of recessions, and this is how long they lasted. Notice all of them are longer. Are 6 months or longer, because by definition they have to be. And notice all of these GDP numbers are negative, and so the country experienced negative GDP growth, actually shrank. It got smaller, and that was negative 3.7% here back in 2007, 2009. We'll compare that with the Great Depression here in just a minute. So recession has a definitive definition. 6 months. Depression is arbitrary. Historical data. If we look at this as a zero right here, and this is GDP growth, so all of these numbers up on the top half are positive GDP growth, all of the numbers on the bottom are negative GDP growth, and then these are gray lines show periods of recessions. And this is the Great Depression back in the 1930s here. We just looked at, in the previous slide here, in 2007, 2009, GDP growth went down. only negative 3.7, but here it's down negative 7.5, negative 7, negative 13 over the course of several years. So that really was a depression. This is sort of a blimp. It's just post-war production transition from the wartime to the peacetime. The troops come home, they're out of work, out of jobs. It takes a little bit of time to get them to transition from making war materials to peacetime materials. And then all this economic growth except for these great periods. So you can really see the business cycle. The period goes up, goes down, goes up, goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up. And so recessions and periods of expansion, they vary in length. We were experiencing a long expansion right now. So can we predict what's going to happen? We use these different economic indicators along with others to try to figure out where we're at on the business cycle. Economists are always doing this. One of the things they look at are the leading economic indicators. They make predictions about 6 to 9 months in advance. So one of my favorites is new building permits. If you're going to build a new home, you have to have a lot of money. You have to apply for a permit, and you're not going to do that unless you are confident about the state of the economy, your own personal finances. You must be secure in your job. You have money in reserves, and you can afford to put down tens of thousands of dollars in building a new home. And so economists track these, and that tells us the direction that the economy is going. They also track all of these other items as well. But here's the new housing starts or new building permits, and this is thousands of building permits, 1960 up until just a few years ago. And you can see here during the last great expansion, these new building permits were really taking off. But then take a look what happened in 2007, 8, 9, when the recession hit. People stopped building new homes, and so those numbers went way down. And so think about all those people that are involved in new home construction. If people are not building new homes, there's no longer a demand for that, and so construction companies aren't going to be making money. They're going to have to lay people off. All the plumbers, electricians, all the interior designers, the window makers, manufacturers, all of these people are going to see a decrease in demand for their goods and services. And so that's a great example of a leading economic indicator. And then you have your coincident indicators. They tell us about the economy as it's happening. I think GDP and inflation are two good examples of those, but also things like personal savings rates. We looked at personal consumption as the greatest portion of GDP, about 2/3 of GDP. So if people are spending money, that's going to bring GDP up. But if people are not spending money, they're going to be saving money. And if savings rates go up, that's also an indication that people are not feeling very confident about the state of the economy. And then lastly would be your lagging indicators. Laggards fall behind. They simply confirm the periods of the cycle after they already happened. And so unemployment rate, the length of unemployment, typically confirms what period of the cycle that we were in. We've looked at a lot of graphs with the unemployment rate. This is one that we didn't see before with the long-term unemployment rate, and how people, long-term length of their unemployment significantly increased there during the Great Recession, 27 plus weeks without a job. And so that simply confirms that this was definitely a recession. So there you go. Know the parts of the business cycle, know the difference between a recession and a depression, and then know the different types of economic indicators, leading, coincident, and lagging indicators, and some examples of each of those. And you'll be ready to go on on Wednesday for practice for Wednesday. There's a worksheet, page 29 in the unit packet, and we'll see you then. Good luck.